It's time for another edition of the Anime Bowl Toonami Podcast. And I am Tommy here with.
Michael.
Okay, so we're going to start by talking about, in order, the um, shows that aired on Toonami last night, which was the 28th of March?
Yeah, it was the 28th. And
Okay.
the 29th because it
Yeah,
went over
technically
midnight.
29th. Yeah. Okay, so we start off with Dragon Ball Z Kai.
Okay.
And yeah, I gotta admit, I'm not very familiar with it, so I was getting to learn all the characters' names in the episode as I watched it.
Yeah, did you watch Dragon Ball back when it was on Toonami Weekly, the original Dragon Ball? I don't know if you watched it much.
No, I was never into Dragon Ball Z. In fact, that was one of the things where I always thought of Dragon Ball Z as like a parody of anime, so to speak. It was like I'd always think of it as like, I don't know, like the extreme. Uh, I don't know how to describe it. It was just like that would be the one show I'd make fun of back then. So I never really got into it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
well, nowadays it is kind of, and even to extent there, it is kind of, in a way, it's a case of because it created so many of the sort of cliches and tropes we'd be used to in anime series and was so influential that looking back it kind of seems like just a bunch of different cliches put
yeah,
together, like stuff like Naruto, One Piece, Toriko, all of those different animes were all really influenced by this.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, this was Dragon Ball Z Kai. As you know, basically the premise of Dragon Ball Z Kai was to take the episodes of Dragon Ball Z, but then try to cut out all of the filler and padding that the series was kind of notorious for, like just some sort of adventure things that weren't in the original. Like from what I remember, this was a while ago, but when they were training sort of to defeat in order to be ready for the Saiyan battle against Vegeta and Nappa, there was a bunch of extra stuff in the anime, that wasn't in the manga, that ultimately, when you think, didn't really mean much, but it actually was kind of integrated well, because you could see it and you're like, oh, they're battling and stuff, but also just generally, there's a lot of padding, just stuff in the fight that doesn't actually really amount to much, but it's just to stretch out time, because Dragon Ball had the same problem a lot of these long-running animes based on mangas do, in that they can't really catch up to the comic because then there's no story to adapt anymore. So they either go off in their own direction like a Full Metal Alchemist did, or or they end prematurely, or they just do nowadays the normal thing to do is just have all these filler arcs
hmm
like
yeah.
like Bleach did.
Yeah, I mean, that episode there, it was like everyone was lying around and it was like nothing's happening, and I kept on expecting some sort of battle, and it just ended up nothing happening for the
Well,
whole episode.
Well, to
And
be
it was
fair, this episode did come straight after a pretty big and pretty major battle. So this was kind of, the aftermath of it.
yeah, it seemed like that to me. I just honestly, that was the first time I watched it. So I mean, I watched it sometimes before whatever episode comes after it, but I hadn't paid attention to it. So yeah, that was the first time I paid attention to an episode, and I was just like, okay, when's something going to happen? And it was just
Yeah.
nothing there.
Yeah, it's basically, I mean, what happened was Vegeta, he was that guy who kind of got into the sort of pod and escaped. He and this other guy came to Earth to try to get to Dragon Balls, but then kind of realized they could get to Dragon Balls on this other place, and there's this big battle against them. The other guy died, but Vegeta escaped. Um, and that's pretty much it. And this is the guy, the main characters, kind of after the battle, because some of the other good guys were killed in the battle. And of course, the main thing to do whenever anyone dies in Dragon Ball Z is get the Dragon Balls, wish them back to life. So they were just
Yeah.
basically trying to figure out how to get to that other place with the Dragon Balls so they can get them all back.
Yeah, maybe. Well, it's a good thing they didn't have Seaman there, and he'd say they're getting away the next generation. Don't want to bring them back.
Oh yeah. Okay. The other, yeah, that was from Gurren Lagann. I do. I guess. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. It's kind of between the arc kind of episode. I was surprised. There was a lot of good humor in that episode, I thought.
Yeah. Well, having a talking cat just always good for you.
Yeah, that he along with a bunch of characters, because before Dragon Ball Z there is Dragon Ball the anime. The original manga was just Dragon Ball the whole way, but at one point when it was came to the anime, they split it up into Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. And of course everyone's familiar with Dragon Ball Z because that's the first one to air in the US. I remember when I was watching it as a kid, I didn't know there was stuff before it, and I was just a little confused by all these characters. Am I supposed to know these guys? Yeah, the cat.
Yeah.
He was more important in the original Dragon Ball. Like a fair amount of other characters from there, their relevance kind of just gradually decreases as the series goes on.
Hmm.
He was one of the guys who like helped train Goku back when he was younger.
Sounds like from Bleach, Yo Richie from Bleach. She was a talking cat too, and she helped train the characters.
Yeah. So I guess not really too much to say about that. It's just Dragon
Yeah.
Ball Z. They'll be
Yeah.
leading into some more. Now for something I guess we'll probably have more to say about Kill
Yeah.
la Kill.
Yeah. See, I love this series so far. I mean, I get whenever I look for stuff online, I get a lot of people who say I couldn't take this after like 10 episodes. I couldn't take it anymore, but I just seem to like this thing more and more as it goes along. That was episode 8 or 9. I can't remember now.
Neither can I, offhand.
Yeah, yeah, it was, and
Let
so
me look it up.
okay. We're finally getting closer to Ryuko finally at least facing the Elite Four because it's set up the exact same way as Pokemon. You've got the Elite Four and then you got the champion who's Satsuki, and they at the end of the battle, it was so obvious. It was like, okay, we're gonna have 5 pillars, and whoever makes it up the 5 pillars are gonna be in the battles. And it's like, well, of course, there's the Elite Four and there's Ryuko, so of course those 5 are gonna end up at the top of the battle, at the top of the pillars, and that's the way it happened.
Yeah, this was episode 8.
Episode 8. Okay.
Yes.
So I think there's 25 episodes, if I'm not mistaken.
Around that, let me just look. Yes, there's 25.
Okay. So yeah, I was looking and it got it took over Twitter's trending list last night whenever that guy Ganguri, I think his name was, the one member of the Elite Four who had that fancy car. Whenever he started doing his thing where he was like, getting all masochistic and loving all of that pain he was feeling, everyone was talking about that on Twitter, and it was pretty funny. Some of the voice actors were chiming in on that too.
Yeah, all the double entendres he was
Yeah.
saying. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm sorry. I was wrong. There's 24 episodes. The 25th was an OVA. So 24 of the main
Okay.
series, then there was an OVA for it. I don't know if that'll go on Adult Swim or not.
Yeah, probably not, but Yeah, we're getting closer to the halfway point where supposedly we're gonna finally find out who killed her father, which I I still think it's not gonna be Satsuki. It's just been building up all this way. So we're supposed to think it's Satsuki. And then they even had that flashback where the person had long hair and who was escaping from having killed her father. And I I I think it's just all a trap. I mean, I saw one person tweet and say Mako killed her father, which I hope that isn't a spoiler, but I can't imagine that being the case.
No, well, that would be a giant twist if it was, but that would be kind of such a twist so big it would be, yeah, that doesn't really work.
Yeah, whenever that happened, actually, I googled it because I was like, okay, last time I accidentally read a tweet, it was a spoiler, okay? Because I see the live blog thing has a thing where I can search anything I want right on the site. So I was searching the Kill a Kill hashtag, and that came up. Well, what happened back on Attack on Titan? I did that for Attack on Titan, and what comes up? But Annie is the female Titan, and that comes in halfway through, and I'm like, what does that even mean? And then and then a few episodes later, then all of a sudden, like Annie doesn't join with everyone else. Annie's acting all weird, and I was like, "Oh man, was that really a spoiler I saw?" And of course, it was. I mean, it's not like it was so hard to figure out by the fact that she looked exactly like the Titan. Anyway, that's whenever I saw that, I was like, I saw Mako killed Ryoko's father, but I'm hoping it was a joke because I Googled it and I Googled Mako killed Ryoko's father. I couldn't find anything. It was just giving me random, just normal results. So there wasn't anything that said that's what it was. So I'm thinking that was a joke, and I hope it was because I don't want to be spoiled again. But on the other hand, if that was the case, that would be one of the most hilarious plot twists of all time.
Yeah, yeah. So this episode also actually kind of also like Dragon Ball Z in that it's basically when you get down to it mostly set up to the battles that she's going to have coming up. I assume against the Elite Four in the election. I have,
Yeah,
which
the
is not
election.
even remotely close to any kind of election.
Yeah, they just seem to uh, use words and phrases that have to do with clubs and student council things whenever it's nothing even remotely close to what they're saying. And uh, I love the one part where they had all the people fighting in the background, and the Elite Four members are just like they just like punch randomly, kick randomly, and just are killing people and knocking them away in the process as they're talking to each other. They were that was like earlier on in the episode. They're just like
Hmm.
running down there and they're talking, and people are just bouncing off them. It was a great scene. And but again, Mako kind of stole the show with some of her antics of uh, whenever she got in the car and was singing, everyone loved her singing. I saw.
Yeah, and one thing I did notice was that in like the big sort of crowd fight scenes, where there's a bunch of like just kind of nameless people fighting, they all looked exactly alike. Same like hairstyle, same sort of like it just seemed like, and I'm just thinking, okay, so are these all clones or something? What's going on? I mean, I know it's just because it's easier to animate that way, but
Yeah,
it just stood out so much as them all looking the same.
yeah. I just uh, get. I don't know if there's any. If it it could possibly be that Satsuki has some big things set up that all of these people are clones or something, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah,
So
that would be a twist.
yeah, like she made all these clones to serve her, something like that. I don't know. I still don't even think Satsuki's the villain. So I like even a villain. She's just basically the Ryoko to Ryoko's Ash.
Yeah, and they did have that flashback also where she sort of helped out the people, even if it was indicated it was mostly just kind of she might have been doing it, just to flaunt her power, but she definitely was, at least helping out that guy in the flashback who was kind of being forced by those people to like jump off the cliff or whatever. So
Yeah.
which of course made I can't remember his names. I'm so terrible with names. The big guy, the one we were talking about before.
Yeah, his name's like Ganguri, I think. It was something like that. I I wish I could look it up, but I don't know if two different internet browsers because uh, both Chrome and Firefox keep on crashing on me.
So yeah, so like Dragon Ball Z, kind of a setup episode, I guess. Actually, that was something. It seemed something about the various shows were showing. Most of the episodes seemed to sort of have some kind of setup or be one where ultimately not that many big events really happened of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
everything.
yeah. His name was Ira Gamaguri, so
Okay.
that's his name. Uh, I'm not whether there's a ranking of them, but I'm thinking he's probably the first one that he's going to have to face, and either we'll have the conventional thing where she fights them one by one, which would be more of a Bleach thing, or we'll have a Sword Art Online thing where it's just like they just suddenly throw everything out the window suddenly and just have her fight Satsuki right away. So is Sword Art Online. I never know what's going to happen with that. You've got a big plot line going for a long time, and then all of a sudden, let's just throw that out the window and just end it all right now with a fight against the main boss.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that would make a good sieging to Sword Art Online. But before doing that, I guess we would conclude that this was a pretty decent episode of Kill la Kill. I've
Oh
been
yeah, it was a good one.
I've been
Yeah,
enjoying this series as well. I think some of the fan service might be a little over the top. I mean, it's relevant to the plot, so it makes sense. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's the one thing is that they do fit the fan service into the plot itself. So it's not something like let's say the camera focusing on Lifa's breast 5 minutes every episode. That that's Sword Art Online for you.
all right. So with that, let's I guess go into Sword Art Online 2.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So
Well,
I, so I, well, I wasn't. I don't think either of us was that particularly fond of the first Sword Art Online. I, I,
yeah.
I thought the first half was decent. Like maybe not exactly half, but the first arc, was decent enough. It had a rushed and kind of confusing conclusion, and I don't think the characters were all that great. But I did find it interesting just because I thought it was a really interesting the idea of a world actually being governed by the sort of RPG rules you'd have in a video game. Not one like where it's people specifically just playing it, but one where it's actually a world with those rules. And obviously, this wasn't exactly that. It was people trapped in the game, but it was the same. But it was the same general idea of being trapped in this world where everything is done by these G rules, which I thought I thought that was really interesting. It got me sort of to not have to not be as annoyed by some of the deficiencies I think it had in sort of like characters and plot. I just really liked that idea. And then, midway through it completely throws that out, and then it's just,
Yeah.
them going into this completely different game without any of those sort of actually being in the game sort of thing. So it kind of got rid of what to me was the big draw of the series.
Hmm. Yeah. See, I was like, well, there's so many things that I don't really like about this, but I was like, well, as long as they just make it to that 100th floor and they go all the way up to floor 100, and you know they finally have the big battle at the end. I was like, okay, this is going to be pretty good. But whenever it's like, okay, we make the floor 75, and it's like, you're the guy who created the game, and it's like, yeah, I am. And then they fight, and then he get,
Yeah.
don't get me started on that, because I will complain about that one episode for years.
Okay.
That yeah, but so the first episode of this, see, uh, one thing I didn't like was that I get hype has been about this certain female character who's going to be in it, and we obviously didn't see her at all in this episode.
Actually,
I mean, at least
I meant to
oh,
bring that up. The you're talking about like the sniper sort of character, I think.
her name's Xenon,
Yeah, that's it.
so
They
yeah,
actually on the Swim broadcast cut out a small final scene just before the credits. So when I was watching it, I was thinking, well, okay, so they're talking about having a picnic. Credits. That seemed like so random. But when I was happening to look at a synopsis of the episode because I wanted to look at something, double check something, it mentioned there
yeah,
was something there. So there actually was a scene that was cut for time, probably so they could have like the full credits song because normally they kind of cut those down where it showed her
yeah,
and she's in the game. I think that Gun Gale Online, and it's not
mm,
much. It's just her like being a sniper and shooting some guy, and it kind of indicates she's really good at it. And then it goes to credits, which makes a lot more sense. I've been told that this scene is basically in the next episode anyway, so I mean it's not that important here, but it
oh, okay,
is I mean it's not as essential here, but it did make for an awkward credits change. And also, if not for knowing that, the next episode, which I don't really know much about other than the fact that it mainly focuses on her, would feel really weird because suddenly it's this episode focusing on this character who was never actually seen before.
yeah. That wouldn't be the first time that we've had something cut out that was like super important. Like I remember one time, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, they cut out a scene where it looks like Scar killed that old guy with the messed up face. I forget it, Doctor Marco. So it like looked like that, and I happened to see the other episode. I don't know how I saw it, but I got to see that scene, whereas they never showed that scene on actual broadcast, and it really cut out an important. It was very important to the plot, and it didn't make sense whenever then the next episode showed the aftermath of it. It didn't make any sense. So yeah, it wouldn't be the first time they've had to cut something out for time. Like they never show the InuYasha previews, which makes me mad because I really enjoy those. But you need the commercials to survive. So
Yeah, they do that for Bleach and Naruto also. There in Bleach there was also these things sort of after the credits, sort of I remember for a while like sort of hollow encyclopedia thing where it would kind of maybe talk about one of the hollow characters a little or something. So though, I mean, it's not as big a deal to me if those are cut out. I prefer the meme, but at least it's not, part of the main episode. But
Oh,
so, but
one.
sorry.
Yeah, you're one of. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say about one of those hollow encyclopedias. One of those was the episode where one of my favorites, Loli, got whatever seemingly got killed, and then in that hollow encyclopedia thing, they showed how she got saved by Uryu's arrow. So yeah, sometimes they do have important things in that, and unfortunately, we never get to see them on air.
Okay, but we've just been talking. Okay, back to the actual episode
Sorry,
itself.
sorry,
No,
I'm
no, no, no,
sorry.
no problem. It's just yeah. So basically, what happened was, there's some guy who's apparently a hot shot in the gun game, which they state is the only one that people play professionally in Japan, which makes me wonder what in the world happened to things like League of Legends in this all in
Mhm.
this future. Um, and then some, and he's like all arrogant and stuff, and this guy like just gets all angry and shoots something at the screen he's on, which apparently kills him in real life or something. And and that's kind of all revealed to Kirito by, I can't remember his name, the guy who like first visited him when he got out, when he woke up from the hospital or whatever. And that happened again. So it's talking about the possibility of someone, shooting someone in the game and that killing them in real life. And I
Yeah,
guess the mystery is, how is that happening?
mm, which yeah, and of course the thing, I was like, well, Kirito didn't believe it could happen, but I was like, well, how did all those people die back in the original? You know, I
Well,
it has happened, but I guess it's a different game, and it's they probably have made laws and stuff to make sure that won't happen again. But
yeah,
yeah,
the way, what I assumed was in the original Sword Art Online, it killed you by doing something that fried your brain. I can't remember the specifics. Whereas in this one, they're talking about uh, acute heart failure, which is what would happen if you were actually shot in the heart. So if a sort of helmet thing, virtual reality, doing something that could affect your brain makes some sense, sort of, because it's right there, but actually affecting, a totally different part of the body, like the heart would be. Is a totally different thing. Also, I think I read someone post about this. Apparently, this is one of the things that was in the light novel the series was based on, but was not mentioned in the anime, which was that one of the reasons this was confusing was because they actually did do that kind of regulation or laws or whatever to make it so you couldn't do that thing anymore with the sort of brain destroying thing. So how is this one working? I mean, it kind of makes some sense under that basis. Actually, someone mentioned that a lot of things that didn't really make that much sense in the first anime were explained better in the novel. So
oh, okay, well, that makes me feel a little better that it's not like the story is that bad. It just they cut things out.
yeah,
uh
I don't necessarily, like I said. I mean, that's just what someone said. I don't know necessarily how many things were necessarily better articulated, but yeah, that would be the explanation. And even ignoring that, there's again the thing. It's affecting the heart rather than the brain. So I thought that was actually. I think so far that it's all set up, but it was a decent and interesting enough sort of mystery that I guess I'm interested in it.
Yeah, I think it was presented very well in a sense that it hooked me and got me wanting to see more. I mean, and I thought too the scenes with Kirito and Asuna. I mean, I forget how to pronounce her name, but see, their romance wasn't over the top like it was in the second half of the first season. This time around, they were very they seem like a real couple, and it was pretty realistic. I could believe that that was them and not that they were raising a little fairy like they were at the second half of the last one. So yeah.
Yeah. So a pretty decent start. Then again, so we'll see if it can keep it up. From what I've from some things I've heard, it really doesn't. But we'll see, I guess. Uh,
Yeah.
all right. So then next up is InuYasha.
Yeah. I mean, I think I really think this is one of those episodes where if you read it in the manga, it probably would be a lot better because it was really focusing on her name Kagome, which was the name of a song which I googled during the episode. It's called Kagome Kagome, and it's basically a children's game they play where they have everyone, like they showed in the episode, where all the children go in the circle around whoever is it, and then they have to guess who it is. But in the episode, it seemed, I don't know, like they were trying so much to focus on Naraku tempting Kagome that they didn't spend enough time talking about how that traditional game and how her name means that symbol, which I think it's called a hexagram. I think that is
Okay.
one of the things that the name Kagome can mean. So, that's basically what it was trying to get at.
Yeah, I think probably the reason it wasn't explaining that much was because, of course, this was originally made for a Japanese audience and then dubbed into English. And if this is sort of a children's rhyme, that would probably be much better known there. Like, for example, in an American one, you wouldn't have to explain to someone what like duck duck goose is. They
Yeah,
would just
yeah,
know it. So if that had some kind of connotation like this, you would just mention that and you would say, okay, there's a connection. So it probably, again, in the original, for the original audience, was sort of more implicit. And because it's a dub, they can't really be adding that much stuff to it that wasn't already there. They just kind of had to go with that.
hmm
All right, so next up is Naruto, which was a
yeah,
filler episode, so nothing really important happened. Basically, it
yeah,
was just kind of them fighting some enemies, and yeah, I mean it's filler. I haven't even
yeah,
really been keeping up that much with what's going on. The plot, if I remember correctly, is there were some guys who were like robbing stuff from like these tombs of these important people, and they're on a just a mission to try to find and defeat them, and those are like the guys they were fighting in this.
yeah. I mean, I enjoyed some of the Shadow clones scenes, but other than that, it was just typical filler.
All right. Well, there's not that much. I mean, it's I guess it does kind of serve the one sort of purpose in that the character Sai, he's a kind of pale guy with the exposed with the constantly exposed midriff. He
hmm
kind of recently joined the group, so it kind of does function in terms of okay, he's a new guy and he's with them and sort of learning to fight with them. It kind of worked on that level. His kind of one of his main sort of things so far is that he's like really like doesn't really understand social things well at all. So he's kind of reading books about like how to endear yourself to people, and of course he always and he keeps misunderstanding them and like with comic like results.
hmm
Like it like mentions like giving, not in this episode but in an earlier one, about how like you should give people nicknames, and of course he just picks these names that are actually like accidentally insulting to them. So
yeah.
okay, The last one is One Piece, which I think is the show that you're the least familiar with, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Did you have any like particular questions about anything in it?
Well, the girl who was captured, what's her significant? Like, how significant is she?
Nico Robin, she's one of the major characters at the moment.
Okay.
Basically, what happened was, let me see if I can explain all this. Basically, she got captured by the Marine slash world government because she's one of possibly uh this is a bunch of kind of confusing backstory, but basically there are these things called the poneglyphs. I don't even know if that's the actual name, but basically they kind of give history of this sort of century in the past called the Void Century because no one really knows what happened to it, and the sort of and like trying to research into that is like totally illegal for reasons we're not entirely sure of. I think it's because like some dangerous stuff supposedly happened there. Anyway, so that's what's kind of made her wanted for a long time since she was actually really like young. So and this is kind of her getting captured by that, and of course the main characters are all trying to rescue her. Actually she got captured along with this other guy named Frankie. So who's a fairly new character, and so all of the guys who knew him are also joining them on the big rescue mission, which is pretty much what's going on. And so basically, the main things happening in this episode is some of the fights went on like slightly advanced. The main thing was about that whole Buster Call thing where one of the villains accidentally invokes it, and the Buster Call is apparently like just saying like some all-out attack on the island, possibly killing, like not really caring too much about what's on it. And of course, then he's when Robin's like telling him like no, that you shouldn't be doing that. It'll just cause all this widespread destruction like happening in the past. And then he's just saying, I don't really care about anyone else who's here. They're all expendable. And of course, has not turned on his sort of snail phone, and the whole thing got a broadcast. So then all like the Marine guys are all like panicking and leaving. So I guess also to mention that the sort of the kind of premise of the series is, like I said, there's the Marines, which are basically the Navy. I don't really know why they're called the Marines. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's just one of those like it sounds cooler in Japanese things. And
Mm-hmm.
they basically, and they're kind of at war with the pirates, which in some cases the Marines are in the right because a lot of the pirates are actually destructive and the way we would think of as pirates. But then a bunch of the pirates, like the main characters, are really more good guys who just aren't really like bowing to the government, which is kind of totalitarian. So there's sort of a little bit of a shades of gray there, but in this case it's just the guys they're fighting are more specifically the more like evil guys in the sort of Marines or world government, like that one who was who accidentally broadcast all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And also, I just want to throw in there is that we did see the first episode of Attack on Titan again, and uh, I think getting to see it for the second time helps me understand a lot more than I got the first time because, you know, like the Scout Regiment here in the past, it's very, those guys look like they don't even know what they're doing for most of the, and they don't really care. No one likes them, and obviously later on, whenever they have Levi as the leader of them, they're obviously a whole lot better. And I think that makes me appreciate Levi a little more than I did the first time around because I didn't like him that much. But now, whenever I see he's, you know, how they were before and actually looking for things like that, it helps me to understand it a lot. And also shows a lot how Armin, again, who I really ended up liking a lot, again, his growth as a character from even the first episode.
Yeah, that was something I noticed how different a lot of things were, and it does kind of make me, I think, like the series a little more because it sort of shifts in like personality there gradually enough that you don't there's not like one big moment where a character dramatically changes. It's all much more gradual. And it's only when you look back at the start that you see some of the differences. Even like just the kind of general tone of the show is a bit different. There's like a really big sort of they're really like trying to put a mood of despair and hopelessness in
Right.
this,
Yeah.
whereas it's more, I mean, it's still there's still some of that later on, but there's more sort of like, I guess like hope, more of a sense of real victories. And maybe it's
Hmm.
just me, but I think the animation looked a little different than it did in some of the later episodes.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they were trying to really hit home with the darkness of it because, uh, man, Jaeger ends up saying that same phrase he says at the beginning, at the end, about that they're in a pen and humanity is just cow. And he says that at the beginning and he says that at the end. And that really makes it hit home, what kind of series it's going to, or at least what they're up against. Although, it does change a lot more as it goes on. It doesn't become so hopeless. So,
Okay, well, I guess that's all the stuff that was on Toonami today. So, anything else?
no, that's a bit about it.
All right, well, I guess that's the end of this first podcast. Hopefully, we didn't screw up anything too horribly, like the audio or anything, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. We'll try to do better next time.
Okay.